Hare Krishna. Once again, welcome to my channel Purposeful Prosperity. We are continuing our series with the little book of common sense investing. We are trying to extract the wisdom from different chapters, and today we are going through the chapter number 8, names Taxes are cost too. And it clearly says that don't pay Uncle Sam any more than you should. So there are different practices which actually reduce our capital that we accumulate, and four major things that are being mentioned are investment expenses, the powerful impact of inflation, the counterproductive investment behavior, and the mutual fund industry promotions of untested and hot mutual funds. And if you really want to avoid all these four practices, then the low cost index fund will really provide you all the required protection from these penalties of nearly all these hidden costs. Next comes there is additional cost which is being talked about in this chapter, and that's income tax. So apart from the previous four cost, we have one additional cost which is income tax, and that's also really has a huge impact. Let's just try to understand what it is. So from the taxation of equity mutual funds, we understand that there are two kind of taxes: short-term capital gain and long-term capital gain. If you have less than 12 months of your returns, then you will be taxed at 15%, and you have more than 12%, then you will be taxed at 10%, uh, over and above 1 lakh. So up to 1 lakh, you have a tax exemption. So these are this gives an idea that if you are trying to sell your mutual fund units more frequently, you are going to incur taxes depending on whether you have done a short term or you have done a long term. So there is some tax you have to pay to the government. And Bogle further says these mutual funds are astonishingly tax inefficient. You really want to know why? Because most mutual funds are astonishingly tax efficient because the short term focus of their portfolio manager, who often are frenetic traders of the stocks. So, these trading of the stocks, which has been done by the mutual fund, active mutual fund mostly, that is causing some amount of taxes. And these taxes are the main reason. That's why Bogle is saying that the active mutual funds are tax inefficient. So Bogle is trying to present again some data from 1946 to 2001. And you can see that the mutual fund portfolio turnover is keep on increasing over the time again. It started from around 18% and it has moved to 85 plus percent. And there are more and more funds which new kind of a themes are getting launched, and if you really look at their turnover ratio, you can really feel that they are having very high turnover ratio. And as per the Bogle, this huge increase in turnover and its attendant transaction cost has ill served the fund investors. And he's saying that this tax inefficiency will continue as long as the stock price rises and the fund manager continue their patterns of hyperactive trading. So he's saying that in the older time, the fund managers focus on long-term investing, where they do buy and hold strategy. But now they are too much of focused on short-term speculation because they are competing with each other. So they really do the short-term trading and try to maximize their profit, but that's not is actually happening. It's a long-term investment that is going to make you the wealthy person. And the final point he's saying that the traditional index funds allow precisely the opposite policy, which is buying and hold forever. It's not just buying and hold, it's forever. And the actual portfolio turnover on an index fund will be just 3%, which is a huge, which is much lesser than any other active mutual funds. So that's going to save a lot of cost to you, and this cost over a long period of time and create a long wealth for us if you are not paying these costs. Bogle further continue and saying that the fund returns are devastated by cost, adverse fund selection, bad timing, taxes, and inflation. So he really summarized all these 5 points in the statements. And if you really want to increase your wealth, then we have to really avoid all these five mistakes of cost, adverse fund selection, bad timing, taxes, and inflation. Inflation is nothing, that's something we can avoid. So there's an image which I got from Access Mutual Funds, and it says that this is your nominal return. So there's a difference between a nominal return and a real return because inflation is taking up one portion of your returns. So your real returns are much lesser than your nominal returns. But unfortunately, none of the fund industries are going to show you the real return. Everybody is saying that you invest some 10,000 per month or some 5,000 per month for 20 years, 40 years, and this much of crores you are going to get. But nobody is talking about the inflation in that return. That inflation is going to eat a lot of our return. So I think we should request the SEBI said that investors, that all these mutual funds should always show the real return. And that way, a normal retail investor is always able to get the right information. Otherwise, he will be always looking at these inflated nominal returns. And once he do all those things and when he is not getting the real benefit, he will be feeling frustrated because the inflation factor is not getting considered. So we should always consider that thing. So Mr. William is giving some really important statement about these thing where it says that while it is probably a poor idea to own actively managed funds in general, it is truly a terrible idea to own them in taxable accounts. See, first of all, he's saying that this owning the actively managed mutual fund itself is bad. And if you own them in a taxable account, then it's further bad actually. So you have to really, if you want to avoid your mutual funds from your taxable account, then you have to stop doing this buy and selling thing. Or you have to put into an account where there is no tax. And as per him, the taxes are a drag on performance of up to 4% point each year. That's really a big statement. 4% of reduction it can happen in your return over a long period of time. So he's saying that many index funds allow your capital gain to grow largely undistributed until you sell. So for the taxable investor, indexing means never having to say you are sorry. Such a nice statement. If you really don't want to say sorry to yourself, then you should be an index investor. And that's the advice Mr. William is giving to us. An intelligent investor should listen to him. Then further, Mr. Botter Michael is giving another statement where he says that the index funds are tax friendly, allowing investors to defer realization of capital gain or avoid them completely if the shares are later bequeathed. So that's really important. So we always understand that the index fund investors always do a buy and hold, and they do it forever. We are passing these holdings to our next generation. Then, then the bottom is further saying that taxes are crucially important financial consideration because the earlier realizations of capital gain will substantially reduce your net returns. And that's one of the biggest mistakes we do because in the active fund managers, we always try to find a fund who is performing best. And as soon as we invest, we see that the performance degrade and then we sell them. And as soon as we sell, we incur some capital gain. We have to pay those taxes. Our net returns reduces, and then we further invest in another active mutual funds. It will do for 1 or 2 year good, and then it will again perform bad. We again do the switching. So this switching cost is causing us a lot of capital gain, and this capital gain is reducing our net return. And if you really want to avoid this frequent switching, then the best way is that you invest through an index fund. Bogle further saying that that index fund investor should be subjected to tax on any gain realized when liquidating share. So we understand that even in index fund also there will be taxes as soon as you realize them. But for an investor who is bequeaths shares to his heirs, the cost would be stepped up to their market value on the date of death, and no capital gain would be recognized or taxed. That's very important. So he's saying that we are buying and hold, we are buying it and hold forever, and we are passing this to our next generation. And on the day of your death, whatever is the current market value, that will become the cost, and hence there will be no capital gain, whoever is going to acquire those things. So that's the way we are going to avoid these taxes. And in a long term, if generation after generation, if we are doing this thing, you are going to create a huge wealth for your future generation by avoiding completely the capital gains. So in Indian context, I find couple of things which I like to add in this chapter is I think we have mainly two plans, I would say three plans. I think we have growth plan, IDCW plans, and IDCW dividend reinvestment plan. So and here we need to really understand that whenever there is a distribution of gains or capital, you have to pay taxes. And if you are really paying taxes, then you are really reducing your accumulated wealth. And over a long term, generation after generation, if you do this calculation, then it's going to create a huge impact. So we should always try to see that we are avoiding this capital gain taxes. And the best way to do is by investing in an index mutual fund. So I hope by now you are in a position to answer this question very easily, that which one is better? Is it a growth plan, a dividend payout plan, or a dividend reinvestment plan? So I hope now my investor knows that the growth plans are the one where we all should be investing our money, and because that's the only way we can avoid paying extra taxes, and we can increase by saving from amount from our these taxes, we can create a good wealth for our future, for our next generation. And that's the right way of doing the investment. And that's a key learning from this chapter. So, thank you everybody for joining with me and staying with me for this chapter. It was a short one. Uh, if you really like the kind of content this channel is creating, and if it's adding value to your life, feel free to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Purposeful Prosperity. And I like to thank you once again. We'll see with the next chapter very soon. Hare Krishna.